I'm Josh Harris, and you're listening to Clear and Loud, a podcast about the ideas, stories, and voices that are shaping our world. Hello, friends. Welcome back to the Clear and Loud podcast. Today, we are talking about the importance of a healthy company culture. What is company culture? Well, it's that collection of values and expectations and practices that guide the way people act and relate to each other within an organization. It's a hard thing to define, but it is very real in any organization. And company culture can make or break a company. We've all experienced this being a part of some organization that has lots of promise, that maybe has a great budget, maybe has a good reputation. It can have a lot going for it, but if the culture within the company is unhealthy and toxic, it can bring the whole thing down. Now, here's the little twist in today's show that I really love. Because, if you were to go out and find someone to talk about how to create a healthy company culture, you might try to find some fancy schmancy consultant or some HR guru who, has done a TED Talk about workplace culture. And this is not to knock those people. I'm sure they have fabulous things to say. But what I love about my guest today is that she is an in the trenches small business owner who runs a hair salon. What better place to learn about and to see the realities of workplace culture than the owner of a hair salon? And this woman is really impressive. You're going to love this conversation. Laura Graven is a salon owner. She's a small business coach and a hair designer who's been serving guests in the chair for over 17 years. And over the years, she's grown her own successful small business culture, serving and loving her clients with handcrafted salon services. And yes, I recognize the irony in the fact that I am a bald man having a conversation with a hair designer, but the topics that we talk about really transcend hair salons. They apply to any business. And if you are building a company, if you're running some kind of team, there's a lot that you can learn from Laura. I hope you enjoy our conversation. Laura Graven, welcome to the podcast. It's good to have you.
Yeah, thank you. I'm excited to be here with you today.
I am really looking forward to talking about the importance of company culture. And of course, there are all kinds of, consultants and workplace culture gurus out there. But I just feel like it's such a cool thing that you come at this from the perspective of owning a hair salon, which I can't help but think is just an incredible laboratory for human behavior, but for studying and understanding workplace culture. But where I want to start is how you got into this business. How did you become a hair designer and then end up owning your own salon?
Yeah. You're absolutely right. Salons are laboratories. That's the perfect way to describe us. So yeah, I've been a hair designer since 2005. I grew up in a household that was super service-minded. Service to others was such an emphasis in the home that I grew up in. My mom was a stay-at-home mom. She was caring for us, all the time, but she was also caring for the village around her that she was building and creating, taking meals to loved ones. And then my father, he was in a nonprofit organization doing work that supported disaster relief efforts.
Oh, very
And
cool.
so I always grew up in this, mindset. We're constantly serving others. And so it became really natural for me to head into the service industry. And yeah, it just made sense for me. Hair designing was something that was just exciting to me. It seemed like something that I could really explore and work that was different every single day, and I could really enjoy it. But really, for me, it was the people. I needed to be connected closely to people. And so started beauty school, worked for almost a decade in a rather large salon, multi-location salon, got super heavily engaged in creating curriculum content, training our new hairdressers.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
That were coming on. So I started to learn a lot about training and teaching during that time, and eventually came to a point where what I wanted and saw for my work and for our industry was just too far away from where I was in the salon that I was a part of in that time. And so
you actually had a vision for like a different way to run a salon.
Yeah, total. A different vision for what it could be. I started teaching. I started traveling throughout the country as a hair color educator. And I started seeing other business models, and I started seeing other salons and recognizing how different we all are and the good of that. And so, yeah, for me, it was just time to do it my own way. We say all the time that being a business owner is harder, but it's better because it's yours.
Yeah.
I really believe small businesses they make our world go around. They are such special places. And so, yeah, decided to do it for myself. We opened Tailored 7 years ago, Tailored Salon. And it's our fun little laboratory. I think that's the really cool thing. Hairdressers, we get exposed to every kind of person out there.
Right.
Just about everyone has beauty needs and visits the salons. And so, yeah, we have such a...
And how big of a team do you have now?
Yeah, so our team, we have, we're an employee-based salon. So that's very different than, say, like the rental suites or anything like that.
Oh, interesting. So in that model, in the rental suites model, they have their own business and they just rent a chair. And in your model, they're actually part of your team. They're employees.
Exactly. So we have employees. It's... we just believe in employee. I really believe so strongly in the importance of community and togetherness and unity. And so we don't really believe in the rental model because we really know that it takes everyone to be on board with a vision and a mission. So yeah, our team, we have a team of 16.
Fantastic.
And yeah, we're an 8-chair salon. We're not huge, but we're just really lucky to have what we do and to be a really successful and profitable salon, even in the small size that we are. And yeah, it's exciting. It's fun.
That's so cool. I'd love to just go back for a second to what you said about small businesses and just the importance of those in the world. Would you just talk more about that? Like, why do you think small businesses are so important?
Oh my gosh, how long do you have? I mean, I could talk all day about this.
I love it.
Yeah, small businesses are so important. I think, for a long time, I knew that I was a leader in the salon that I was, not because I had a title, but because, people looked to me because they needed me in some way. And so I started to recognize that, leadership isn't a title. And so I think a lot of times people are looking for... They believe that they have to become something else. They believe that they need to earn a place at a table. They believe that in order to really be effective and create change in this world, they have to be someone that they're not. And really, we have to be where we are and do with what we have.
Yeah.
And oftentimes that is in the mundane. That's in the every single day. And so to me, small businesses, like that's where it's happening.
Like
every single
that's the
day.
real world where people's lives are being shaped for the good or for ill.
Totally. That is where the everyday is happening. And small businesses are just, we are so tied and so connected to our communities
Mm.
in ways that people don't even see and don't even realize. And so I just think that it's a really important place where we do create change and hopefully for better. But it's just a place of a lot of opportunity for us to really build and craft the world that we want to see and be a
That's
part
so
of.
good. What's unique about a salon, and how is it different than other small businesses?
Yeah. So, I mean, what I think is really unique about a salon is, again, almost everyone comes to us. You know,
You are
we
talking. You are
maybe,
doing a podcast interview with a bald man who really misses those visits to the hairdresser. They don't happen anymore because
yeah,
I just
it's
shaved my head.
the
So I
way to
just
do
want to
it.
acknowledge every time you say not everyone, it's because you're feeling this kind of
Well,
embarrassment that you're talking to a bald guy. But
that
anyway,
I've
continue
realized.
and
Sure,
continue.
sure.
But it's a place where people gather. Like almost everyone needs to
Yes.
take care of their hair. Yeah.
That's exactly what it is. Everyone, it's a place where people gather. That's
Mm.
really what it comes down to, right? And so I think that salons are special in that way because also as service providers, we get to be exposed to so many different
Oh,
types of
interesting.
people and the roles that they play in their own lives. And so to me, what makes salons super special is that we learn as technicians to work on cultivating an environment that is safe for everyone.
Wow.
Or at least that's what I hope
Yeah.
and want
Yeah.
to believe that we're all
Mm-hmm.
doing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And salons, if I have a haircut in an hour, how many times in a day do I have to create a handcrafted product that is suited for this individual?
Mm.
And, teaching and training new hairdressers how to do that well and gracefully, while having thoughtful dialogue and,
Gosh, that's high pressure.
it's it's a lot. It's a
I
lot.
mean,
I mean,
most like deliverables that any kind of business does are there's like some level of separation. Like, well, we prepared this and here it is, or we're shipping it off to you or whatever. But it happening right there,
yeah.
and there could not be anything more personal than the hair that's connected to that person's head, right?
It's like live artwork.
Oh
And
my
oh,
gosh,
by the way, it very much will emotionally impact the buyer. Like they're gonna
big
have an
time.
emotional response. And so yeah, the pressure is really high. And teaching young hairdressers how to do that well is super tough,
Mm,
and the investment that it takes and energy and time and money, all of that, it's really tough. So the margins that we're operating on are teeny tiny,
mm,
the service industry in general. And I think we really saw that with COVID, right? I mean,
mm-hmm.
it's like restaurants and the service industry, you need your people. And without people, you don't have a product.
Yeah.
And so, that just became even more evident to us in that time. But I don't know. I mean, I just, of course I'm biased, but yeah, salons are super special places. It's a gathering place and a lot of good can happen there. So,
Well, let's talk about workplace culture. I saw this
mm,
article in Forbes about 2022 will be the year of workplace culture. And there's this huge focus now as companies, compete for workers. That competition involves having this healthy company culture. I'm curious how you define workplace culture. Like what is it in your mind?
so I mean, cultures, it's a buzzword, right? Like everyone is talking about this. In my
Mm-hmm.
opinion, small businesses have been talking about this forever.
Mm,
Corporate America is finally talking about this. It's like, oh, culture, culture, culture. And it's like, yeah,
right.
we've known that this is important forever.
Yeah.
And so to define culture is tough. I think, in my mind, gosh, I didn't even really prepare a definition of culture. But if I really, really think about it, it's how do people feel
Mm,
when they're with you?
yeah.
And are they feeling your core values?
Yeah.
Are they experiencing what you say you most value?
Mm-hmm.
If your values are the promise that you're making to your employees or to the people experiencing your services, I think culture is the delivery of that promise. And if
That's
they
a
really
great
feel that.
definition. I feel bad for putting you on the spot. Definitions are always
No,
like,
it's okay.
especially with phrases that we're so used to using or throwing around, when you actually stop and have to think about what it means. And what I think is so
Mm-hmm.
interesting about the way you talk about company culture there is, or the culture of anything, could be the culture of a family, culture of a
Mm-hmm.
church. It doesn't matter what you have on your mission statement. It doesn't matter what
Yep.
you have. Like, you can paint things on your wall, you can make
Yep.
everybody memorize something, but the culture is like what actually happens, you know?
You are so right.
And
And those things are different usually.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And you feel it, even if it's unspoken. You might not be able to put your finger on it, but
Yep.
when it's good, you know it and you feel it and you want to be a part of it. And when it's unhealthy and toxic and negative, again, doesn't matter,
You know it.
what the promise is, the reality is felt and
Yep.
experienced.
Yep.
What do you think the key elements of a healthy company culture are?
I mean, I think if you're going to create a healthy culture, it's really about, defining what you believe and value.
Mm,
If you can name that and define it first, and
mm-hmm,
sure, again, this is not about like what goes in the mission statement or what's set
mm-hmm.
up on the wall, right?
Yeah,
Like those things. But if you can define it and name it and really start to understand that this is what we're about,
yeah,
um, I think, there's not a magic formula. There's
right.
not there's not like there's this secret sauce to a
Mm-hmm.
formula. But I do really think that, as we're starting to understand how harmful toxic environments can be and start to even define what toxicity is
Mm-hmm.
and start to see that more than anything, people are looking for belonging.
Yeah.
They want to
Mm-hmm.
belong to something. And so when you think about your business or you think about the community and culture that you're going to cultivate, then how do you help people believe that they belong?
Mm-hmm.
And when you can start to define that for yourself, then it gets a lot easier then you have that clarity
Yeah.
to start to tell that story to the people who are coming into your company.
If you enjoy this podcast, show some love to our sponsor, Beanfields. Beanfields are crunchy, mouth-watering chips with full-on flavor. And you can enjoy bag after bag because they're healthy. These plant-based chips are vegan, non-GMO, gluten-free, corn-free, and come in incredible flavors like sour cream, nacho, fiery hot, Korean barbecue, and ranch. They are positively addicting. Visit beanfields.com to order directly or just go to your local Whole Foods or natural food store. Are there practices or moments that you can identify in your own business, or it's like, me doing this or me communicating this or showing up in this way is actually shaping that culture and taking the mission statement on the wall and actually putting it into practice? Are there ways that you think about that as the owner and leader of your company?
Totally. I think one of the things that I immediately go to, I mean, we do, regular touchdowns with our team. And when I think about the development, we talked a little bit earlier about what it takes to really create and develop a successful hairdresser and how many layers of that there is.
Mm-hmm.
And as the leader, my team needs me. My
Yeah.
team needs time and attention from me.
Mm.
And there is nothing about relationships that is efficient,
Mm.
right? We can't like create standards or productivity rates or anything like that that's going to really draw out of our people the best that they can be. They just need time and attention from me and to effectively listen to them and find out what their needs are. And then they need to be lifted up and supported and all of them have different needs in that way. So I would say, the first thing that I go to is just the time that I spend with them and their touchdowns regularly. They're calendarized. They are, they're put out there. The team knows that they can depend on that time with me.
Mm.
And, that's how I kind of love and care well for them.
So you call them touchdowns? Those are like those one-on-one meetings with your staff?
Yep. They're one-on-ones. It's, we pull all their numbers. We track and measure everything in a very detailed way. So we look at the numbers. We, talk about what's going well, identify where they see need for improvement, but focus on a lot of the feelings. That's where we have big discussions about the feelings, because that stuff matters. And so I think you just can't not do those things.
Right.
And I guess for me, one of our core values at Tailored is empowerment. We want our team to be empowered as hairdressers, to be the professional, to make the recommendation. We want our clients to feel amazing and feel like their best version of themselves when they leave. And so in order for my team to feel that they are empowered, I have to support them. There's no easy way around that. And so it's just time with me that I feel like, that's how I hold to that core value for them.
What do you think the environment of a salon can uniquely teach other businesses about company culture? I guess most businesses wouldn't have their team like so close to each other.
Sure.
They're hearing each other interact. I imagine, and maybe this is from pulp culture and from media and so on, but often the salon setting is kind of portrayed as this place where there's a lot of cattiness or, those types of things. How do you think about leadership in terms of that environment of support? Like, you can have these one-on-ones with your team, but then they're interacting together. And how do you think about shaping that dynamic and how people talk about one another and encourage one another and so on?
That's a good question. I think, and it's disheartening to me because, as you say, like, salons are viewed as maybe catty, or we gossip and it's true. And to create a different environment than that takes a lot of intention. And so,
I just need to pause here and say that kind of cattiness and gossip and just underhandedness is happening in everywhere. Business context. It's happening in
totally,
every kind of corporate context and so on. But it's maybe focused in a way in that context. So do you have those kind of conversations where you actually have to challenge certain staff or even let certain people go because they're adding something to the environment that's bad?
All the time. I think that's what it really comes down to. It doesn't matter it doesn't matter what type of work environment you're in, right? This is not specific to salons. But if you are the leader, you have to hold the line on the values.
Right.
On what it is that is most important. That is your job as a leader to sustain a company culture. And if you value honesty, then when there is not honesty, you have to call it out.
Yeah.
And I think, and that is hard, right? But I think something that we talk about with our team all the time, especially as it relates to empowerment, I don't want to be your mom. I don't want, we have to hold one another accountable. This is about the entire team working together to hold up these core values. And so when it comes to sustaining a company culture, you have to have people bought in to what your culture is.
Yeah.
And we define our culture through our core values. And you cannot train core values. You have to hire people who have those core values. You can't train them. You can't drag them on board to these values. You have to hire for them. So then your people are holding the line. Your people are guarding and protecting the company culture themselves because they see you model it as the leader and they will uphold it with you. And it's not easy. I don't say this like, oh, it's, when you hire the right people. And it sounds so much easier said than done. But more and more, the older that our company gets, the more we see that the people who are truly bought in and the people who want to be a part of this for the long haul, they are the ones who guard and protect your company culture. sometimes better than you can. And
That
when
is
they
so
step into that,
powerful. Yeah.
when they step into that power of leadership,
Yeah.
you know, in some ways you feel like, oh, my work is done. They get it, you know, but yeah, it's hard.
That's such an insightful thing to say. If you want to build and preserve company culture, you've got to hire people who embody it. It's not hire talented people and then train them into the values.
Mm-mm. Mm-mm. I can train technical all day, right? Like I can train you how to cut a straight line.
Mm-hmm.
I can train you how to color hair. I can train you how to greet our guests the way that we want to be greeting our guests at Tailored. I can do that's all technical. That's all easy to me.
Mm-hmm.
I cannot train you to uphold the value of leadership or empowerment or growth or whatever it is that your company values. You can't train that. And so, you know, of course that makes the interview process so important.
Well, that's what I was curious about. Like, what does that look like for you?
Oh, it's detailed. And it's, you know, it's quite a process. And especially in this world right now when everyone is looking for people, right? Like recruitment is so important right now in small businesses. And it's such a hot topic. It's all we're talking about. But, you know, our interview process completely revolves around our core values. We have 4 core values. We have specific questions before we don't reveal what those core values are to the people initially. You know, really, it's like we want to discover and uncover, do they have it, you know, in them? So we do. We have a whole entire, you know, process of kind of categorize questions to each of our core values so that we can really identify, is this something that's in them that they also hold dear? And, you know, crafting your questions around those things is really important.
You mentioned earlier how the salon setting is unique in that you're not serving just a single niche of people who want to buy, you know, a certain kind of truck, for example. You know, they might start looking similar. You're just serving people who have hair. Yep. So you're dealing with all different kinds of people. And it's not only the end result that they're looking for, it's also the process, you know, that interaction with the customer. So that customer service, how important is that in their kind of perspective or view of the final haircut? Like, I'm just curious, like that interaction in the chair while the hairdresser is under this pressure to get everything right. Like, how do you think about that as a hairdresser?
The phrase that I use all the time when I'm training my team is, we have to learn how to sing and play guitar at the same time. And if you've never done that, that's going to be hard. And, you know, I used to joke all the time that most people don't even know a good haircut, right? They just choose the stylist because they like their stylist. You know, they hit it off at one point. Something about the connectivity, you know, resonated with them and they felt good in their chair, and, you know, something in the conversation, or there was some reason why they came back and why they often stay. You know, people tend to be very loyal to their hairdressers with good reason, you know, but I think it's really this braiding together of the talent and skill, because we're talking about creatives here who are behind the chair.
Right.
So it's this braiding of the talent and skill, but also the talent and skill of a dialogue and having meaningful and thoughtful conversations, because it's how the guest feels when they leave your chair that they remember. You know, that last moment together is what they hold on to for the next 6, 8, 10 weeks. And that's why they come back to you. And so,
because of the human connection through a conversation.
The human connection, you know, that when we were shut down in quarantine, I can't tell you the number of clients that reached out like, I know that they say you're not essential, but you feel essential to me, you know? And really, I don't think that it was so much people were needing their haircuts or craving their hair color to be done. They were missing people. They were missing the connection of the dialogue that takes place in the chair all the time. And so those things are equally important. I used to put a higher value on the quality of the of the haircut and the
Mm.
outcome. And as I've gotten older in this industry and as I've, learned a lot more, it really is the balance of the quality of that service and the outcome, along with the connection that we make with them.
I was talking to a friend recently about how rare it is these days to interact with someone who's actually a good listener. And I'm just wondering, how do you teach one of your team members to have a good conversation? Is it about the questions they ask? Is it about the talking, or is it about the listening?
Our rule that we train to is the 80-20 rule. And we should be asking such thoughtful, open-ended questions and have the guests be talking 80% of the time, and we are talking 20% of the time. So when we just say to each other around the salon, hey, 80-20, right? We're holding one another accountable. Like, hey, I noticed maybe, we need to shift that percentage a little bit. But, especially for new hairdressers, it's so hard. It's so hard to teach them how to listen well. And it starts with open-ended questions alongside of that rule. And so another phrase that we really train to a lot is, because you said your hair feels dry, I recommend this for your service because it will, give you this outcome. And so that forces them to really listen to what it is that the guest is saying. And that's in the technical part of it, right? Mm-hmm. That's in the technical part of the service they're providing. But when they start to grasp that at the next level, of asking thoughtful, open-ended questions, it definitely takes some time and development with young hairdressers especially. But it's hard to teach. It's really hard to teach because I completely agree with you. We don't listen well.
What you're sharing applies to so many different business contexts. I mean, my world is the creative agency space, where I lead teams of people who are designers and web developers and writers and so on. And that interaction with the client along the way really does shape so much of their perception. That customer service, that where you're listening and you're caring about the other person, is so important. So I just love that you, as a salon owner and business owner, can really speak to and speak into so many different business contexts. And I know you do business coaching. I'm just curious, is that mostly with salon owners, or are you branching out to kind of take the lessons learned and bring them into other business contexts?
Yeah, well, I mean, I agree with you. I think, you called us a laboratory in the first place, right? So the things that are going on in a healthy salon environment, it does relate to so many. We are dealing with creatives,
right?
And you're trying to make them, profitable.
Right.
You're bringing together those are not things that really, typically are working together very well. And so, I am a business coach. Right now, primarily, I work mostly with, other salon owners because obviously we have so much in common that way.
Sure.
But I agree with you. I think that there is the type of coaching that I do and the way that we focus is really kind of bringing tools into your business to help you become, more profitable ultimately, but in order for you to do work that you really love, make a really good living doing it, and having the balance of a life outside of that work is what can make that sustainable. And so that's really kind of a heavy focus in the coaching that I do, and really being able to use some tools that identify and give us some language around how to do that well. But the braiding together of the tools that we use along with the accountability of a coach is such a game changer, I think, for small business owners, because leadership is lonely.
Yeah.
Right. When you are doing this on your own, you can feel really, really isolated and really challenged and alone. And you often can start to feel like maybe your team just doesn't, they don't appreciate all the work that you're pouring in. And so just that isolation is so tough. And
That's
so
true.
I think business coaching is such a really important way to have another lens on your business and just have your own cup refilled and have you be supported for all that you're giving to your team. So that was a really long answer to
No,
your question.
that's a great answer.
But,
I want to talk about the importance of community because it's something you mentioned. And I was thinking about the television show The Shop that stars LeBron James, the basketball player. Have you ever heard of this show?
I maybe have heard of it, but I'm not familiar enough to be able to speak to this.
It features him having conversations with other athletes and pop culture icons. And you could call it a talk show, but it feels different because it's filmed in a barbershop.
I love it.
And I was reading about how LeBron James, he chose this setting very purposefully. And he was quoted as saying, when I was a kid, being in barbershops meant listening to adults talk about sports and clothing and politics and music, and everything happened in the shop, and it was so real and so candid. And what I realized is he's describing community, he's describing this safe, inviting environment, almost like a public square. And then he's recreating that in his show. I'm just wondering what you've learned about the importance of community. Another catchphrase that can be meaningless sometimes, but
totally.
What's the role of community in building your team? What's the role of community in building a meaningful connection with your customers?
Fostering community is everything to me. When you start to think about all the hats that you wear, just as a person, right? I think about my own. I am a wife. I'm a mother. I'm a business owner. I am, a public school advocate. I am a dog mom. It's like we all can start to list off all these things that we are and all these hats that we wear. And a lot of times our identity gets rolled into those things. But all of us are wearing all those different hats. And the salon is a place where they all start to crash together in such a good way.
Wow.
And, you can't help but create community in the salon, in my mind. You have all these different people gathering together and experiencing one another and looking through another lens and viewpoint. What it really comes down to, we can't do this life alone. We have to have community. And when we do it with intention, it's just so much richer. And I guess I just think that, we don't need big titles. We don't need to be in a different place than where we are to build community. And so all the things that matter the most to me, that all meets up in the salon every week. I have friends that come and visit. I had all these different relationships in my world come there. And it's so special. And I just feel so lucky that my work that, also is what, creates a paycheck for me is what I get to do every day. I know that's not common for a lot of people. So I feel really lucky because of that. But, if we're going to try and go at anything alone, we're just not going to be as successful. Yeah, I agree. Community is such a buzzword. But what community are you finding yourself in right now? And how can you, enhance that by participating?
What I hear you saying too is that the people are the point. It's hard to build an authentic community if you're just doing it because you're supposed to, or you're trying to put on behavior like, let's have this team building exercise. Let's all, go do something. But what I hear you saying is that's the joy, the interaction and the people and the relationships and the connectedness of life is actually the richness of life. That's the point. And all the other systems and business side of things, which is important and good, is there to support that. But really, it's the community. And I feel like you having that mindset probably sets an amazing tone for your customers and for your staff. So I love how purposeful you are in the way you build your business.
I mean, you hit it right on the head. That is the whole point, is the people. And without that, you don't have anything. And so the systems, to the point that you were making, systems, we fall to the level of our systems. Those things have to be in place. And those
Right.
systems need to evolve to serve the needs of the people that we're serving.
You're talking about systems and policies and structures and those kinds of things.
All those things. The most simple way being, if I'm going to have a touchdown with my team, like those are calendarized out for the whole year, right? So that system is there that the team knows that they can trust and depend on me to have that time with me.
Right.
So those systems are so important when it comes to a small business, but the whole point is to support and love your people.
Yeah.
And when there's love behind it all, then, you get a lot of clarity on how to make decisions, on how to move forward, and how to care well for the people around you. And I think that, more than anything, I want a team that feels like they belong right where they are.
Thanks for listening to the Clear and Loud podcast. I'm your host, Josh Harris. Our producer is Pam Cameron, and this episode contains music by Jeremy Yaddo at Music for Podcasts. If you like what you hear, give us a boost by subscribing or leaving a review on Spotify or Apple or wherever you listen. We'd also love your feedback on today's episode. Or if you have a question you'd like addressed on a future episode or a guest you'd like us to consider, email us at hello@clearandloud.com. You can also shoot us a direct message on Instagram. Our handle is @clearandloud. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.